Today on News One Now, can a line of black dolls boost the self-image of black girls? Does it have an impact on how they see themselves later in life? We will explore that topic on what these dolls actually mean to the images of sisters. All that and more coming up right now on News One Now. Folks, you see these dolls sitting before me right here, and many of you growing up, of course, you actually played with dolls. You might have, if you're a guy, you might have sisters who also did the exact same thing. And for a lot of African Americans, they actually did not have dolls that were made in their image in terms of their hair, in terms of also how they looked. And when you talk to women as they got older, they talked about how the beauty or the definition of beauty in America was determined by those images, not just what they saw in magazines and television commercials, but also the kind of dolls they were able to play with. And so today we have a couple of African-American entrepreneurs who have gone out to help black girls embrace their own self-images by creating a line of dolls that they can relate to. We also want to expand this beyond that to talk about what this means in terms of the self-image, in terms of the self-esteem of black girls and eventually black women. It's called the One World Project, and their doll line is called the Prettie Girls. And joining me now is founder of the project, Trent Daniel of Skype in Houston, Texas, and Stacey McBride Irby, creator of Prettie Girls dolls. She joins us on Skype via Los Angeles. And Stacey, I want to start with you. It's no surprise you are calling these the Prettie Girls. And I would say that I wouldn't be surprised that you chose that, because when we talk about black girls, when we talk about that image, you have folks who grow up who say, you know what, I never saw myself as pretty because they didn't see themselves reflected when it came to the dolls they played with.
Definitely. And I can speak to that because as a little girl growing up, I didn't see fashion dolls that looked like or represented me. I had baby dolls that looked like me, but not fashion dolls. And everyone in this world wants to be pretty, wherever you come from, race, creed, background, older, young. You want to feel pretty. So I wanted to create a line of Prettie Girls dolls that represented being pretty, not just inside, but out.
And Stacey, I know some folks out there may say, you know what, this is really not that big of a deal, but look to history. When you think about Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife, Mamie Clark, the famous doll study that they actually conducted in the 40s and 50s, it was that doll study that was cited by the U.S. Supreme Court in the Brown versus Board of Education decision as related to how black children saw themselves. We've seen that doll study replicated over the last few decades, and it still exists where you have black girls and black boys who look at images of black kids and they did say that the black child is ugly compared to the white child. A lot of this is driven by the images we see growing up, but also what we're able to play with.
Definitely. And that test always saddens me. That's why I did want to create dolls, because a doll is our first image that we really see and we're able to nurture and play with. So I wanted to create images for little girls that really change the institution and make them feel good about themselves.
Trent, I want to go to you. You're founder of the One World Project, and what is the origins of that particular name?
Well, the origins of the One World Doll Project name is that when Stacey and I first met and decided that we wanted to do this, we first of all wanted to send a message to, it's not just about black people or Hispanic people or one group. And I think that's kind of the messaging in our culture that kind of gets lost. You know, if somebody creates a black doll, all of a sudden they're a black doll company. And we're not a black doll company. We're actually a company that is focused on multicultural diversity. We want our dolls to reflect the melting pot that the United States of America is. And so that's when we really thought about the name of this. We wanted to make sure we sent a name that sent a crystal clear message that it's about all of us and not just about one particular group.
Trent and Stacey, first of all, I know some people, again, may think, well, look, I mean, these are dolls, but the reality is this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And what people see also determines that. And I can tell you, as somebody who is the uncle of 9 nieces, I have 3 sisters, and I can tell you growing up, I remember my mom having difficulty finding dolls that looked like my sisters, and it was like, yo, I'm bringing back a white doll for my daughters to play with when I want to see them. I want them to see themselves. It has certainly gotten a lot better. Stacey, you actually worked for Mattel, and you left the company. Why did you leave?
Well, a little bit of my Mattel history. I used to play with dolls, fashion dolls as a little girl. I played with white Barbies because that was my fantasy world, and I didn't have a doll that represented me. So fast forward to 2008, I'm a Mattel designer, designing Barbies, and my daughter wasn't playing with dolls. And I realized the time had changed, and she didn't see an image of herself in a fashion doll. So that's when my passion and desire chose to inspire dolls that looked like my daughter through Mattel, African-American line of dolls, and they embraced it. My community embraced it, but I realized that my passion was bigger than Mattel's marketing plan. They didn't really promote the dolls like I expected them to, and my passion outweighed that, and that's when I decided I'm bigger than this. This is a bigger movement. I need to go out on my own, and that's when I partnered with Trent T. Daniel, and we created the Prettie Girls line of dolls.
Trent, Stacey, hold tight 1 second, because we come back, I want to talk about this notion between a link between toys and dolls and also the esteem of children. A child therapist would also join us to talk about this. And again, for folks who are listening and watching at home, do understand this is deeply rooted in history in terms of the self-hatred, if you will, in terms of African Americans. When you go back to the famous doll studies of Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife Mamie, and again, in that Brown versus Board of Education decision, that doll study was cited. And so you might think, well, this is just dolls and toys. No, it really goes to cultural differences. It even goes to self-esteem, again, how we see and view ourselves. And so that's one of the reasons why we wanted to focus on this.
She'll be the smart child. And why is she the smart child?
Because she is white.
Okay. Show me the dumb child. And why is she the dumb child?
Because she plays.
Well, show me the ugly child. And why is she the ugly child?
Because she plays.
Folks, that was a 2010 video from CNN where they recreated the famous doll test of Drs. Kenneth and Mamie Clark. And you saw there how a black child viewed themselves. The photo we're showing right now, that is Dr. Kenneth Clark and his wife Mamie. Unfortunately, Mamie actually didn't get a lot of the credit for this as well. Dr. Kenneth Clark often has gotten the credit, but she, was right there. And so we wanted to, clearly we were talking about in this particular segment these various dolls. And so this segment really went from, okay, here's a new company to something that's even much broader in terms of how our children are impacted by these images. We still have Trent and Stacey joining us as well from the One World Project, but also joining us on set is Ellen Livingston, a licensed clinical social worker, and again, Trent Daniel, as well as Stacey McBride Irby, also with us, a creator of the Prettie Girl dolls. I want to go to you, Ellen. You brought some additional dolls right here.
Yes.
And this really speaks loudly to the self-hatred
Absolutely.
that black women and even black men grow up with in terms of how we look at color, how we look at hair, how we look at all of those different things. We saw it in Bill Duke's and Chan Berry's documentary, Dark Girls. Same thing, how you have these beautiful brothers and sisters, these beautiful children who grow up thinking that they are ugly because beauty has been defined as not looking like this, but as only looking like someone who's white.
Yes, absolutely. And this speaks to from generations before. When I was growing up, the only black doll that we had was the Julia doll. Remember the Julia series on TV? That was the only black doll, and all of our dolls were white. And as we've come along, in this company that we have here is wonderful to provide an array of what blackness and what beauty looks like in all colors, because I understand it's not just African American dolls, that they're brown dolls of all different types, and it does affect our children, and it does affect them negatively.
Do you see it in your work in terms of women who come in and here they are adults, some of them in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they still are bothered by that notion of what is beautiful?
Absolutely. I have, in my practice, I have seen women who have gone to great lengths to either participate in plastic surgery or changing their hair by adding hair extensions and different things to look more like what we consider beauty in America, which is very different from our broader nose and our broader hips and our kinkier hair and curly hair and what have you, who've gone to great lengths and who don't like themselves even after they've gone through all of that, because that's not their authentic personality. That's not who they are, really.
Stacey, when I look at these dolls here, I mean, obviously I see some with straight and braided hair, but also I see a huge afro right here. So clearly you were thinking about all of that in terms of offering different looks, because we got a lot of women out there who really emphasize natural hair versus over getting a perm.
Definitely. So I did want to put afro in our collector line of dolls. This is actually the Cynthia Bailey doll, our first collector doll. And I also wanted to add curly hair, straight hair. I wanted to give little girls something that they can play with and also see themselves and women in their community.
Look, Trent, I understand, look, you've been a male, me as well, but the reality is this also impacts us, because it impacts it when it comes to our relationships, when it comes to our daughters as well as our nieces, and their interaction with men and boys.
And that's a key point, Roland, that you just brought up, is that, you know, it's always about the messaging. And when we walk into our local retail store, whatever it may be, when you see an entire aisle of one race of doll and then just this little small sliver of another race, it does send a message. And that's a message that we intend on changing. But I think a bigger dynamic, Roland, is that we also have to understand it's not just a situation where the retail stores don't want to carry black dolls and, you know, the white-owned stores don't have any interest in little black girls. There's also a supply problem. And that supply problem comes from the fact that there have been many attempts for businesses to create African-American dolls. But when you talk about the financial dynamics of being able to bring a product to the marketplace that a major retail store can put 100,000 units in, that becomes a whole nother different topic that kind of goes into the business, the black business community's responsibility to create the supply for the demand, because the demand is certainly out there. And in our conversations with many major big box retail stores, they want the product, but it's a matter of they're having problems sometimes finding the product. And that's really what the core of our mission is to provide supply for the demand.
Ellen, do you believe that this line of dolls and others can have a dramatic impact on changing the view of the next generation to understand different views of beauty, and also greatly improve the self-esteem of the next generation?
I believe it can. I believe that, and I see the array of the dolls that they have, the different hues, skin tones, and the different hairstyles. I think it does help our young
And
ladies.
even the ones that you have, shapes and sizes.
Shapes and sizes, and professions. There's one that is a doctor, Dr. McStuffin, I think is her name, and different professions. I think that it is important for the self-esteem not only of our daughters, but also of our sons. And our sons do get impacted by how the women in their world feel about themselves and how they allow the men to treat them. And I think it is very important for our daughters to see these types of images.
Trent and Stacey, where can folks actually get the Prettie Girls from?
People can log on to our website at oneworlddolls.com. And we also have a major website chain that we're distributing through, which is wayfair.com, wayfair.com. So either at oneworlddolls.com or at wayfair.com.
Stacey, final comment.
Pretty girls are beautiful, and you are a pretty girl, and we want you to embrace your pretty on the inside and out.
Well, my problem is I have 9 nieces, and so I got to get more than 3 dolls sitting here. So I certainly appreciate it, Stacey and Trent. Thanks a lot. Ellen, thank you very much as well. I appreciate it.